course, 43 people were total to have died. People's heads were blown off, their guts were blown out. People were forced stripped naked to crawl on their hands and knees and to go inside hallways with glass naked, run down the hallways and beaten in the testicles, inside the heads, put back inside the jail, inside the cells, 4 or 5 people naked together. And then they came out in the middle of the night and grabbed people all night long, took them out into the urinals that we had dug up in the yard, where there was a street urine and defecation, and put people in there, put their heads in the face in the urine and the excrete, and executed them behind the head. So at that time, I was charged with beating a prison guard to death by the name of William Quinn, and to this day I continue to say that I was not the one who hit this guy and caused this man's death. And in eventuality, there were 61 of us that were indicted, and of the 61, eventually, Ramsey Clark initially represented my co-defendant, who was a guy by the name of Charles Bernacelis. My lawyer at that time was the former civil rights attorney, who is now deceased, William Kunstler, and I was found guilty and given 20 years to life after almost being forced to go to the electric chair, but they ruled the electric chair unconstitutional in 1973, the Supreme Court did, which is the only thing that kept me alive, kept Charlie Joe alive. We were both convicted. Charlie Joe got a lesser conviction, and I was found guilty of killing Guard Quinn, second-degree murder, and I was given 20 years to life in prison. On the day the verdict came back, April the 5th, Ramsey Clark and Bill Kunstler, they took me back into jail. Ramsey was able to keep Charlie Joe out on bail. I'm not sure, did Charlie come right back in with us?
Never went back in.
Well, in any event,
First night, yeah.
right. And then, but when we were in there, then I was talking with Ramsey and talking with Charlie Joe, and we were all watching the snow coming down outside. And that, at that point, began a major, very hard sojourn for me. Years down the road, 7 more years on top of that. I had the stigma of being a cop killer. Everywhere I went, they attempted to murder me in prison. Even with the fact that by this time, after 4 years, Kunstler had never perfected my appeal. He never did. He never put my appeal in. At that point, I asked Ramsey, I wrote him and I said, Ramsey, I said, Bill has not perfected my appeal. I'm asking you to take over my case. And would you do that? Ramsey immediately said, yes, Johnny, I will do that. Ramsey came in, became my lawyer, and within a matter of a year's time, a big commission came down because Nelson Rockefeller was trying to suppress evidence into a second grand jury about the murders that were committed by the New York State Troopers and the guards that went in with their own guns. And so he suppressed that evidence into a second grand jury. There was a guy, a whistleblower by the name of Malcolm Bell, that basically put a 60-page report to the New York Times and demanded, right, that he said basically that he was trying to cover up for the killings and to keep Rockefeller's name bloodless while he was having Senate hearings for confirmation as the Vice President of the United States under Gerald Ford. And so at that point, again, the commission came out. Eventually, the commission found out 4 years later, they ruled that they gave a blanket amnesty to all the state troopers and the guards that committed murders. They dismissed all the pending indictments against the rest of the Yannicka brothers. In my case, they gave me a clemency, which made me eligible to go to parole board, but I was, for the first time in the history of New York, refused parole, predicated on the basis that there was a state, Dale Volker and Ralph Marino had lobbied along with the Guards Union of New York against my release. I was given 2 more years. Ramsey Clark appealed to the succeeding governor, Hugh Carey, personally, and demanded and asked that I be released. And the second time I went to the pro board, because of Ramsey Clark's intervention, I got out. And so I think today, and I won't be much longer, but I had to give you that little bit of history there. But I have to say to you, over the years, that it was Ramsey Clark that kept me alive when I was in prison, that it was Ramsey Clark who and I have concurred with many different things over the years. Ramsey helped to run intervention during the 1995 standoff in Gustavus Lake to stop Ujo Dosanjh from sending in the assault force to kill Native peoples up at Gustavus Lake, a handful of Indian peoples. Ramsey Clark has been there for me, and we've been the best of friends for years. For many years, we've been like brothers. Today, I am glad and I'm honored and I'm totally respectful of the fact that Ramsey has come over here and to talk with you tonight and to talk about his work in bringing George Bush to justice in the commission, and the War Crimes Commission that Bush committed in Iraq and Afghanistan, and as well, hopefully, tomorrow, Ramsey will be able to address the court right after I am sentenced for attempting to judge George Bush for war crimes, murder and torture in Iraq and Afghanistan. Without further ado, I want to hear a big, big applause from my brother, and my lawyer, Ramsey Clark.
So, Doc knows how to lay it on, doesn't he? I believe everything he said. So was my brother.
Speaking of legal issues, there are donation boxes for Splitting the Skies legal case. And maybe you could pass the donation box around there. And near the, kind of between the back and the middle of the room there's also donation boxes. And, there's lots of pressures regarding this, legal case. We don't know what's going to happen to Splitting the Sky, and it's costing him a lot of money, and he has a family. And, there's always pressures for people who go against the grain, swim against the current, like our hero Splitting the Sky.
The funds that are raised here tonight are for Ramsey Clark.
Okay.
So just if you could, just to help him with his, with all of his costs while he's
Sure.
here. Okay, thank you very much.
Sure, okay, donations for Ramsey Clark.
That's not a very worthy call. Not that,
And Sandra and Rainbow and Che, they didn't get here by magic carpet.
there's a line from Dante that great Italian poet, religious scholar, and one of the great humanitarians in history. He tried to categorize sin. He was religious. And then his book, The Inferno, it came to what he considered
I'll put it like that. Thank you.
the worst. He put it this way. The hottest places in hell are reserved for those who in time of moral crisis do nothing. That comes to mind because we never have to worry about solving our moral crises if we had more John Hills and Dr. Joyas around. And there's really no other explanation for why this is court hearing tomorrow, and that at a time of moral crisis, and if you're religious God knows there is a moral crisis.